Hi, I'm Urvashi. My blog is twosleevers.com, and today I'm going to review a Ninja AF100 air fryer. So I have to tell you up front, Ninja sent me this, but I think they know me well enough to know that I'm mouthy and I will just say whatever I want about it. So I'm going to give you my honest opinion about what I think about this air fryer. I have reviewed other air fryers as well, and I'm going to kind of follow the same guidelines, showing you how much it holds, talking you through the different functions, and then letting you judge for yourself whether this is the right thing for you or not. Okay, so the main thing about these air fryers is always about the capacity. And I've mentioned this in other reviews before, but it doesn't help that much to understand how many quarts it holds. What really helps to understand is how wide it is, the basket. And the reason for this is because you want your food in one flat layer for cooking as much as possible. Now, meat shrinks, vegetables shrink, so you can have a little bit of overlap, but what you don't want is a basket that's this small and that deep, because you're not going to be able to stack food on top of it. So let's start with the basket, and let me show you how big it is. And this time I've been clever, and I've put in little cans for you to look at. So you pull the basket out, and as you see, these are little 4-ounce cans. So think of this as a hamburger patty, if you will, okay? Although your hamburger patty might be a little bit wider. But if you look at this can and you look inside this basket, you see that we can comfortably fit 5 cans in here. Trying to get another one in here is going to be difficult. So you could, you know, stack something, but look, there's no room. And as you know, in most air fryers, the heating element is on top. So this is probably 2 chicken breasts, I would say. You know, maybe 3 or 4 chicken thighs probably. Honestly, it's the same capacity as most of the other air fryers this size. So there's no disadvantage or advantage to be had in how much it's going to hold. Now, let's look at how this basket is set up. So, I reviewed a Gourmet once, and the Gourmet was set up the same way, where it was very efficient design. In this case, as you see, there's one basket, and then there's this grid, and this grid just comes out. This crisper plate just comes out. The crisper plate has holes and vents in it so that the air can circulate. One thing I love about it is that there are no vents on the outside. Some of the other air fryers that have this design have vents on the outside, which might help with airflow, but honestly, it can make a huge mess if you've got a ton of grease at the bottom. So I prefer this design. It's very efficient. Most of the basket is cooking space. This thing pops in and out. And all of these things will go into the dishwasher. They're non-stick and they'll go into the dishwasher very, very easily, which I really like about it. Okay, so let's talk about the footprint. So I've tried to show you footprint in a variety of ways, but this actually has a very narrow, sleek footprint for how much it holds. Many of them are bulbous and they jut out on top, and this one doesn't have it. What this means is that this one will fit under my counter with no trouble at all. So I could store it under the counter, and when it's time to cook, I'll pull it out because it has air vents here and on the back. And you need to leave enough clearance, and you need to make sure you're not heating the bottoms of your cabinets, but at least it can be stored away, which I really like I like the sleek surface. Let's talk about the features. So just so that if you guys haven't watched my video on the science of air frying, please look that up on YouTube or on my blog. It'll help you understand how air fryers work, which will make it easy for you to adapt recipes. So basically what we have 2 components in most of these mechanical components in most air fryers. You have a heating element that is typically situated on the top, and then you have a fan that circulates that hot air, and that's what the air frying does. It's convection heat with a very powerful oven. If you have a convection oven, the difference between that and this, in brief, is the size that the other oven is probably a full size. It takes longer to preheat, and the fan may or may not be as powerful. Again, watch that video on the science of air frying and you'll understand it. So the features on this one, it has 4 distinct features. It has air fry, roast, reheat, and dehydrate. And the main difference, there are 2 main differences in these functions. The main one is the speed of the fan as it comes through. So I'm going to turn on one at a time so that we can kind of see the speed that the fan comes in on. So basically, air fry has the highest fan RPM, so rotations per minute. Next up is roast, next up is reheat, and next is dehydrate, which is actually extremely helpful because as your food dries out, you do not want it flying all over the place, which to me increases the functionality of this. Now I will show you some of the dehydration I did, and I'll tell you the advantages and disadvantages I found. But basically you have the ability to reduce the fan speed, and I think that can be used in a variety of different ways. So let's listen to the fan, okay? For dehydrate, it's gonna come on at 150, and then let's give it, it comes on by default for 6 hours. Let us press start, and let's listen. See, it's on very, very low. The fan is barely rotating, and the temperature in there is going to be low. What this means is that I can put something into dehydrate at night and not worry about it waking up my entire family because the fan is going like a turbine in there, okay? Let me pause that, and let's go to reheat. Now for reheat, it comes on by default at 350 and time at about 15 minutes, and obviously this is adjustable with the heat and whatever. And let's start the fan for this one. See, a lot louder than the dehydrate, right? So you can hear the fan, but of course from the sound alone, you're not going to be able to tell the rotations per minute. Next up is roast. Let's see what happens. Roast comes in at 375 by default and 15 minutes. And of course you can, you can change that to however you want. What, up and down, you can change the temperature is what I meant. It does sound a little bit noisier to me than the other functions we saw. And then air fry. Now this is where the fan should be on turbo. So this, I think I was messing with it earlier, so it was at 390 and 20 minutes. Let's just start that. So, you can hear the fan. It's not the quietest machine, it's not the noisiest machine, but there it is, okay? I've tried 3 of the functions so far. I've tried the dehydrate, I've tried the air fry, and I've tried the roast. Let me start with the dehydrate function. So the pluses and minuses. So I wanted to make apple chips. I very optimistically cored 2 apples this size. These are Gala apples, there's not much to it. And I used a mandolin and cut them really, really thin. And there was no way in heck I was getting to this whole apple in that dehydrator. So essentially, I had to put the apples on top of each other. And now, these are dehydrated, so it would have been even more. So let me just show you how much it is. What I had to do was I had to put half the apple at the bottom, I had to put a rack, then I had to put the other half on top, and then halfway through I had to come in and I had to switch things around. So I have things that have stuck to itself. The plus is, the apple cost me 50 cents. I could have left it in overnight and I would have come back to some apple chips. Okay, the minus is this is not the device that you're going to use to put away a bushel full of produce. It's going to be a little bit. So one of the uses I thought of for it is that at night you could slice your apple or whatever. You could put it in here and go to bed, and in the morning you have something to put into lunch boxes as an example. But remember, it'll dehydrate, just not in large quantities. And what I like is that it does it quietly. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the roast feature. So the roast, the fan comes on a little bit low. Now, one of the things I should tell you about this book. I have an everyday easy air fryer cookbook. This is out in Costco. It's out at Barnes & Noble, Target, Sam's, and Amazon. And in this, I have 100 recipes that start with real food, and you can make any of those. So as I was testing for this, I had cakes that I was trying to make, bread that I was trying to make in here. One of the disadvantages in baking in an air fryer is that there's a fan on top. So if you have some kind of a delicate bread dough or a cake dough, the fan is going to make a swirl in it. Okay, the way I got around that for the cookbook was I asked you to cover it with foil, which keeps the fan heat from hitting the top of it, and then you can brown it later. So my erroneous assumption was that if the fan speed was lower, would I be able to bake something in here under the roast feature without having that swirly top? And the answer in my case was no. Here is some cornbread that I made. I used a package of cornbread mix. I put in half a cup of chopped onions, 1 small can of corn, and a can of green chilies, and the egg, and 1 egg and 2/3 of a cup of milk. So this is a 3-cup bundt pan. Now the other thing that you should remember about baking in an air fryer is you definitely want a bundt pan. A 3-cup pan just fits. So if you're trying to use a big 6-cup bundt pan, that is not going to fit in here. Okay, this is the perfect size for it. The advantage of buying this one is if you have a pressure cooker or an Instant Pot, I have recipes for cakes that use the same thing. So I'm trying to double duty most of my containers. So as you see here, even under the roast feature, the fan does come on. and you see the swirly top, but you see how beautifully brown it is. And the beauty of this was I baked a cornbread in my air fryer without having to turn on the oven, which is always a good thing. As I mentioned earlier, this is not a showstopper. The way to deal with this is to put foil on top until the